No choice. That's the phrase that should terrify anyone who loves live music, because the single biggest band on the planet doesn't have one either. BTS has the money, the engineers, the leverage, an army tens of millions strong across the globe. They could build their own ticketing software from scratch tomorrow. So why is every single Western stadium on the ARIRANG Tour still funneled straight through Ticketmaster? Because this was never a technical choice. It's a legal lockout. Ticketmaster controls the primary ticketing at over 80% of major US concert venues. Which means the moment BTS steps onto Western soil, if HYBE says no, every American, British, and European stadium date literally cannot happen. That's the ultimate paradox of modern entertainment. The biggest musical force on earth, forced to play by the rules of a monopoly, it completely outgrew. But how deep does this web actually go? When fans stare at instant sellouts and brutal prices, the anger almost always lands on the members, or on HYBE. But HYBE isn't choosing this infrastructure. They're plugging into a venue lockout that was built decades before Kpop ever crossed the Pacific. And nearly every premier stadium across North America and Western Europe sells its primary tickets under strict, long-term exclusive deals. This is the mechanism ARMY has never been shown. Call it the Exclusivity Venue Lock. And it isn't a fan theory. The US Department of Justice, joined by nearly 40 state attorneys general, spelled it out in a 124-page antitrust complaint. They accused Live Nation of coercing venues into multi-year exclusive deals, using the carrot of upfront cash and the stick of cutting off access to the biggest tours on earth. The Justice Department calls it a self-reinforcing flywheel. Fans call it the reason they can never catch a break. And here's the part that stuns people. Live Nation doesn't have to own a single stadium to control the door. SoFi Stadium, M&T Bank Stadium, Soldier Field, Live Nation doesn't own that concrete, and it doesn't run the concessions. What it holds are the exclusive primary ticketing and promotion contracts that lock every rival platform out. So if HYBE tried to run ARIRANG through Weverse instead, a system already built to survive millions of users at once, they'd slam straight into contracts they never signed and can't break. BTS isn't choosing Live Nation. Live Nation already owns the pipe every ticket has to flow through. Which raises a far more dangerous question. What happens when the unstoppable force of BTS demand slams straight into a corporate wall built to never break? 2.4 million tickets. Gone. 41 stadium dates across North America and Europe, sold out almost the instant they opened. Online waiting rooms routinely stacking over 100,000 fans deep at a single venue. Some assigned to positions past number 28,000 before a ticket ever appeared. That's not a pre-sale. That's not even a normal sellout. That's an economic tidal wave, crashing straight into a pipeline one single company controls at the gate. And here's what that company does with a wave that big. Live Nation doesn't just make money on the fee you see at checkout. Across the venues they actually operate, they've built what economists call a vertically integrated extraction engine. And a tour like BTS is the highest yielding asset it could ever process. Think of it as the hexagon fee extraction model. Because inside a Live Nation building, one stadium seat isn't monetized once. It's monetized across 6 distinct touchpoints, all firing at the same time, and every one of them is a hand reaching into a fan's pocket. The venue lease, the primary ticketing surcharge, the dynamic pricing that climbs the instant demand spikes, the concessions, the parking, the local promotion rights. Now here's the twist most fans miss. On a tour like ARIRANG, playing NFL and college stadiums Live Nation doesn't run, the concessions and parking belong to the venue. So they're cut narrows to what they can control everywhere. The promotion margin, the ticketing service fees, the VIP packaging, and those dynamic surges. And even that narrower slice is staggering, because prosecutors would later put a hard number on the ticketing piece alone. $1.72. Skimmed off ticket after ticket quietly for years. When BTS lands in a city, they don't fill a stadium. They recalibrate the local economy. And yet, holding 100% of the cultural leverage, HYBE stays boxed inside a Western system built decades before Kpop ever conquered the globe. So why hasn't HYBE just bought their own stadiums or forced a legal standoff and ended this? What's actually holding a multi-billion-dollar powerhouse hostage? Look at the receipts, because this stopped being theory the moment BTS touched American soil. When the tour hit El Paso, a mid-sized Texas city, 2 nights at the Sun Bowl pulled in an estimated $75 million in local economic impact. $75 million from one weekend. Tourism officials watched a single band flood their hotels, drain their transport, and fully book 14,000 rooms across the city, with visitors spending an average of $1,300 each. To put that in perspective, Coldplay's 2 nights at the very same stadium generated barely half of it. And this wasn't a one-off spike. Industry watchers reported the Tampa and El Paso shows alone averaging over $12 million each, a 64% jump over BTS tours just a few years earlier. The band didn't just come back. Stretched across more than 80 shows in 34 cities across 23 countries, this is the largest tour BTS has ever attempted. They came back bigger than the Western system was ever built to handle. So compare the two worlds directly. On one side, Weverse, a fan-first queue that's already carried the load for massive real-time moments, from the Gwanghwamun comeback stream to global pre-sales handling millions of fans at once, but with zero control over a single Western venue. On the other side, Ticketmaster and Live Nation. Technology fans openly call outdated, but with an exclusive lock on the overwhelming majority of major US stadiums. And here's the truth, nobody in that boardroom once said out loud. The barrier was never server capacity. Weverse can handle the traffic in its sleep. The barrier is stadium keys, and a single company has spent decades quietly collecting every one that matters. This is the systemic power asymmetry at the heart of the entire story. If HYBE pulled BTS from Ticketmaster locked stadiums to prove a point, the group would be forced out of 80,000-seat stadiums and into 15,000-seat arenas, slashing the fans they could physically reach by over 70%. Every single night, millions of armies shut out of the experience completely. Live Nation knows this. They're betting their entire hand on it. They know BTS refuses to leave fans behind, and they weaponize that devotion against the very artists who create it. This is the ARIRANG paradox. The bigger an artist becomes, the more dependent they become on the only infrastructure large enough to contain them. The more you win, the tighter the cage. Which is exactly the calculation Live Nation may have gotten wrong. Because here's what every executive in that boardroom keeps underestimating. BTS and ARMY don't behave like a standard commercial asset. Every time a corporate system tries to build a wall around this group, the movement rewrites the rules of engagement in real time. When platforms manufacture artificial scarcity or slap hyperinflated surcharges onto a presale, ARMY doesn't passively swallow it. They track the data. They organize globally overnight. They push antitrust attention toward government bodies and hold billion-dollar institutions accountable at a scale no fan base in history has ever managed. Purple oceans of light sticks in one stadium become coordinated pressure campaigns across 100 countries the next morning. That's not a customer base, that's a movement with infrastructure of its own. And that pressure is landing at the exact moment the ground is already cracking underneath Live Nation. When the Justice Department settled its case in early 2026 without forcing a breakup, 33 states and DC refused to fold and dragged Live Nation in front of a jury instead. In April, that jury sided with the fans. They found Live Nation and Ticketmaster liable on every antitrust count, an illegal monopoly that overcharged concertgoers $1.72 per ticket. Trial evidence even surfaced internal messages where employees bragged about gouging fans on fees and parking. One of them wrote, quote, "Robbing them blind, baby. Live Nation is appealing the verdict, so the fight is not over. But the court record is already public, and it is damning." The Wall Army was mocked for criticizing was not a conspiracy. A jury of ordinary people looked at the evidence and officially called it an illegal monopoly. Army was not overreacting. Army was early. The legacy of BTS was never going to be defined by the ticketing system they were forced to navigate. It is defined by the fact that 7 artists from South Korea forced the entire Western music industry to admit that the old way of doing business is fundamentally broken. They proved that real cultural power does not come from owning the venue. It comes from the unbreakable bond between the stage and the stadium. The thing no contract can buy and no monopoly can lease. Live Nation may control the pipe, but BTS controls the culture. And over a long enough timeline, culture always rewrites the laws. So, it leaves us with one defining question. Will HYBE eventually build the global venue pipeline needed to bypass these Western middlemen forever? Or is the stadium live monopoly simply too entrenched for any single music company to break? Drop your answer in the comments because I read every single one. And if you want to see how HYBE is already quietly engineering their next move to bypass Western gatekeepers entirely, the way they built the Weverse ecosystem to seize control of the entire music supply chain, that's the breakdown waiting for you right here.